Well, I just want to say good afternoon to everyone. I'm Kevin Jeffries, the President and CEO of the Leawood Chamber, and welcome to our third in our series of women's leadership events. And we've been pleased at the turnout for these and glad so many people have been able to join us, and we've learned a lot of really interesting information. I'm sure today will be great as well. First of all, I want to thank if I can get my computer to do what it's supposed to. I'm going to go back to this, thank our sponsors. Our 2020 presidential sponsors include Advent Health, Burns & McDonnell, Country Club Bank, CrossFirst Bank, Demdeco, and Menorah Medical Center. A special thank you also goes to our sponsors for today's event. They've helped us bring this whole series to all of you. All these organizations have been very instrumental in us being able to do this for you. Our presenting sponsor of the whole series has been CrossFirst Bank. And then our series sponsors have been Advent Health and the BKD companies. And then our supporting sponsor was Cosentino's Price Chopper, located right up in Ranch Mart at 95th and Mission. Their financial support has been very much appreciated for the event. So I'm going to turn things over now to Melanie Glassman, who is one of our board of director members, and she is the director of KC Relationship Banking at CrossFirst Bank. So Melanie, take it away.
Thanks, Kevin. CrossFirst Bank, at CrossFirst Bank, the health and safety of our employees, clients, shareholders, communities, and stakeholders remains the utmost priority during this global pandemic. Our locations are open by appointment only, although we have employees available to assist you, whether it is in person, through our drive-thru, or virtually. Today is a special day at CrossFirst Bank as it marks 13 years of successfully reaching our clients across Kansas City, Wichita, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Dallas. Despite the disruptions caused by the pandemic, this has not stopped us from accomplishing some extraordinary things this year. In April, we processed over 1,200 paycheck protection loans that served as a lifeline for our business owners, their employees, and families in our local communities. In July, we opened our second full-service bank in the Dallas metropolitan area, located in Frisco suburb. This giving us our 8th CrossFirst Bank location. In September, our Kansas City team relocated our Plaza location to 46th and Pennsylvania in the heart of the Country Club Plaza. I invite you to visit our LinkedIn page and take a virtual tour of this beautiful new banking space with breathtaking views of the plaza. Our bankers at our 2 Leawood offices and our new plaza location are equipped to work with you to achieve your financial goals, providing you with an executive level of service with our suite of financial solutions for both personal and business clients. As a presenting sponsor, I want to thank the Chamber office and staff, the other series sponsors, and the panelists for their time and energy into the Women's Series this year. Now, I'd like to introduce one of our series sponsors for today, Courtney Hutchison, a benefits consultant at BKD Companies.
Thanks, Melanie. I appreciate that. I'm Courtney Hutchison with BKD Companies, and I'm a benefit consultant here. And BKD has been in business in Leawood since 1992. Mike BKD started BKD Companies with him and one other person on his team, Carol, and she still sits on his team today. So we have a lot of tenure here at BKD Companies. We focus primarily on employee benefits. We have HR consulting, property and casualty, financial services, benefit administration, and payroll and accounting. Our core purpose is helping people protect their quality of life. We are very honored to be a part of this series, and we would just like to thank everyone for attending today.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
We're extremely fortunate to have 3 panelists join us today who are members of the Kansas City Business Journal Women Who Mean Business honorees, an elite group of female business leaders who have made significant strides in their industry as well as their community. Our first panelist is Jill McCarthy, Senior Executive of Corporate Attraction for the Kansas City Area Development Council. With more than 28 years experience, Jill leads a high-achieving business recruitment team for the Kansas City Area Development Council, or KCADC, a private nonprofit organization charged with representing the economic interests of the entire 2-state, 18-county Greater Kansas City region of 2.5 million. Jill drives new business to the Kansas City region, which includes talent attraction and capital investment. She works with companies and national site location consultants considering the Kansas City metropolitan area for expansion or relocation. In addition, Jill holds multiple board positions for businesses and charitable organizations.
Excuse me, it's late in the afternoon, I guess. Sherry Turner with OneKC for Women is our second panelist I want to introduce today. She has a variety of experiences from corporate management to business development to entrepreneurship. She now serves the Kansas City metropolitan area in a leadership role with the Women's Employment Network, the Women's Business Center, Women's Capital Connection, and We Lend. Mission alignment of these organizations creates financial independence for women in our community through sustained employment, the advancement of women business owners in all stages of their business, and access to capital through micro lending and equity investments.
Our third panelist is Joy Wheeler, the CEO of Girl Scouts of North Kansas and Northeast Kansas and Northwest Missouri. Joy provides strategic direction for the preeminent leadership development organization for girls. This role is perfectly suited for Joy's career passion to help women achieve their highest potential throughout all stages of life. Following a 38-year career in executive leadership roles in the healthcare industry, Joy is now committed to developing girls for a lifetime of leadership and preparation for the 21st century workforce. Joy's diverse and extensive leadership background provides her the insight and skills to execute the Girl Scout leadership experience and programmatic focus on 4 critical areas of STEM, entrepreneurship, civic engagement, and outdoor experiences. Thank you each for joining us today. Now that we've introduced our panelists and as we continue our discussion, please feel free to enter questions for our panelists using the Q&A feature on your screen rather than the chat bar. We'll try to answer as many as we can considering time.
Okay, well, great. I think this is, again, I'm really looking forward to this program. And again, I want to remind everyone that we will have this particular presentation available on the Chamber's YouTube channel sometime tomorrow is our hope and our dream on that. I want to start our Q&A on this to start with Joy on this. And I think this will be a great question for her to lead us off with. What do you feel can be done at the middle and high school and college levels to help young women discover and develop their talents and passions and prepare for leadership roles? I'm particularly interested in that because my third daughter is now 14 years old, so she's right at that point.
Well, good luck to you in that journey that you're on. So the most important thing that we can do for developing girls at any stage of their youth is to build courage and confidence. The younger we start, the better off we are in terms of developing the whole woman. Courage and confidence is critical to focus on for girls because it's where they are held back the most. How do we develop courage and confidence? Courage is developed by taking a risk and experiencing success and repeating the same thing over and over. And what's different about girls from boys is girls are risk adverse until they feel comfortable that they have all the rules, all of the instructions, have the best chance of success at the first opportunity and try, which holds them back from opportunity because boys are immediately driven to risk. They really aren't concerned about whether they're going to get it right the first time, and then they move on. So we have to be really conscious of what it takes then to help build that courage and confidence in girls in terms of making sure that she has opportunities in traditional and non-traditional female girl experiences, that she gets affirmation and is repeatedly told that she can do it, versus what I still hear so often, it's okay if you don't want to do it or you don't think you can do it. Girls usually don't do that kind of thing anyways. Encouragement. try again. Girls will hold back if they think they can't do it right the first time. She needs a lot of encouragement to go ahead and try. And we have to manage our false assumptions about what a girl will and won't like. And then encourage her after she is successful to give herself credit for what she's just achieved, as opposed to expecting her to give credit away to everybody else that helped her be successful, which is what girls and women do all of the time. And we really need to stop that behavior. Take credit. You did it. Yes, you had a team behind you, but you were successful. And that's how we build girls' courage and confidence. And we really need to start as early as we can, but particularly middle school. 30% of confidence is lost at middle school age for girls, and it's never gained back. And then they're constantly trying to make up for that as they move forward. So we have to continue to give that affirmation, give opportunities to take a risk, try new things. Don't be afraid of failure. Give credit where credit is due. And then the end result of that is you build a female who has self-esteem, confidence, and that's what we all need to be successful leaders.
Absolutely. You know, Jill, I know that you all at KCADC hire quite a few college-age women as interns and things like that. And I'd just be curious for your perspective on that same question.
Absolutely. And I'll actually go back to what Joy said. I love that courage and confidence. I think so much comes from the very early formative years, and that I can instead of can I. And I think for all of us, there's a real need to set expectations too. You know, I grew up in a household that you can do anything. You can be anyone. You can do anything. There's nothing that you can't do. There's no reason why you can't do it. But it was also a conversation of when you do this or when you go here instead of if. So I think we have to set expectations. And I think that goes back to expectations with young hires. You know, oftentimes they come in and don't necessarily know how to behave. And you think that as you grow up, you have certain things in the professional field and you think, well, everyone knows those things, but they don't. And you honestly have to say, you know, here's an expectation for dress code. Here's an expectation for, you know, how you behave at meetings, and don't be the last one sitting at the bar, or, you know, don't have more than 2 drinks at a work event. Or, I mean, you have to actually be very, very clear about expectations. And I think some of the expectations that I tell the young people is sit at the table and use your voice. You're the only one that can be you. And so, you know, be part of it, be the team. And if you need someone to be an ally, if you're afraid to throw something out there, have a conversation before the meeting and say, here's something I'd like to throw out, you know, but I'm a little uneasy about it. You know, get some allies around the table before you actually enter the room. And so that's some of the things. And the other thing would be to build your tribe. I think sometimes young people, they get wrapped up into work and they forget to build peers outside. You know, we talk about the Mean Women group. What an amazing peer network and support group. So, you know, if you have a bad day at work, you're not complaining to the people you work with. You move outside and you get into that tribe that you've built. It's really important.
Great.
Kevin, one of the things that Jill mentioned is don't be afraid to use your voice. It's one of the things when we're working with young girls that we really, really emphasize. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of confidence to use your voice. And this is something that women suffer from, is I don't want to say anything. It might be the wrong thing, or I might sound stupid, or somebody might make fun of me. And so we have to help young girls know that their voice counts regardless of what their opinion is.
Yeah. Sherry, how about from your perspective of the different organizations you work with?
So anything Joy says, I agree with. she's the preacher. I turn the pages, and oddly enough, you know, those same affirmations are still being encouraged with individuals that are in their adult state. So it's not like we've solved the problem. So Joy's work that she does in those more formative years is so important because it's learned behavior at the same time, right? It's competence, but it's also what both Jill and Joy have said. It's continued affirmation, because we can easily, so quickly have something happen in our lives that really put that confidence in reverse. And there's lots of studies regarding, unfortunately, the female gender in which we tend to blame ourselves and regress way more rapidly. We really don't fake it, you know, whereas in many cases, there are studies that indicate, you know, men can rebound a little faster, whether they're legitimately okay, they're faking it very well. So that's kind of gender differences, and it's not by opinion of any of the three of us on the panel. It's just, it's supported so much by data. You know, we work in the programming that we do, we're working with educating women mostly, and what I find to be the most empowering piece in the adult stage is still the knowledge and the education in order to ensure that your competence is built. And so, you know, striving for success still requires feeling really confident about it. Women have a tendency to really analyze things and take a little longer. Sorry, I'm right here in the middle of Westport, if you're hearing that, Ed. It's right by my window.
Dear.
Hopefully that's not stopping. And so we just have to constantly be educating in order to ensure that the goals are being met for the individual. And I think it's a lifelong struggle sometimes for us as women.
Ladies, the next question I have, Sherry, I'll have you start off with this one. It's a twofold question. What advice would you give a young professional woman starting her career who aspires to move up the corporate ladder? And maybe the advice you'd give someone starting into their first management role?
Always volunteering to say yes on projects and taking the lead role and not waiting for your male counterparts to one-up you is really important. You have to be at the table. So saying yes just about on everything, even, and again, women don't tendency have if they're not fully 100% confident that they can do it, right? It's kind of like even looking for a job. Women tend to look at a job description, and if they don't have every attribute in the job description, they don't think that they're really qualified for it. So it's the same thing. You kind of have to take a leap of faith in that you can figure it out, and that you can, behind the scenes, as fearful as it might be, you have to feel the fear and do it anyway, and take that role. And you have to be at the table that way by stretching yourself. And what was the second part of that? Sorry.
You know, advice you'd give those who are starting in their first management role.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is really, 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 really important. Women have got to embrace education on financials. We have a tendency, always have, and it's so even more prevalent now, and I don't even understand it. Even in the entrepreneurial space, there's so many entrepreneurs, and this would be true for men and women, but it's really, really important for women to embrace some sort of educational path on understanding financials, budgeting. Obviously, if you're running into a management role, there's no way you're going to continue to climb that ladder without understanding some sort of accounting acumen related to a balance sheet, a profit and loss, establishing a budget. And these are just learned skills, right? It's not that hard, and there's plenty of resources to do it, but not everybody's an accountant. If I had it to do all over again, to be honest, I'd have been a CPA to start. I would have just gone and gotten that, and then I wouldn't have had to struggle throughout my career of learning it, you know, on our own. So I think that's really, really important. And there's no way women are going to go all the way to the boardroom without having that education as well. And it doesn't mean that men are doing it any differently, but I'm telling you that we will be looked at more critically by not having that acumen under our belt. I
couldn't agree more, Sherry, which is why one of our 4 program focus areas is entrepreneurship, and we are really, really emphasizing that. And it's progressive as the girl gets older because it holds so many women back. So kudos, I really agree with that.
I know Jill agrees with it.
I do agree with that. So, you know, and I think personally and professionally, you need to always get your finances in order and work within a budget, and you need to know how to set a budget. And I think during these challenging times, more important than ever, because you're looking at what's next year's budget and what about the year after, even what impacts today will happen in the future coming forward. But I also think too, like additional advice I would give maybe on that scenario would be, gosh, I mean, you know, you look at something and you think, gosh, I've been in this job for such a long time. It's hard to remember when you weren't in it. But I know when I started out in economic development, I worked for the city of Shawnee, and I was hired as the number 2 in a department. And then we privatized out of the city and blended in with the chamber. And then my boss, like 18 months later, took a job in California. I mean, I was like 28 years old and knew nothing really about economic development, and was then moved into the number 1 spot. And so you think about feet to the fire. I thought, well, they don't know what they're doing because they don't know anything. So a little of that fake it till you make it. You can do it. Going back to Joy's, you know, I just thought, well, you know what? I'll figure it out. But I really also leaned on a lot of people that had my job in other locations. And so, you know, I talked a little earlier about build your tribe, build your network, but you need that professional tribe to just say, for heaven's sakes, here's what I'm looking at today, and I have absolutely no idea what to do. What would you do? And I didn't lean on the same person every day, so word doesn't get around that you really don't know what you're doing. But, you know, reach out, find out what are some tools that maybe you didn't know. Or, you know, even when it comes to presenting in front of a client, a city council, or whatever it might be, a board, you know, ask for help. There's no reason not to ask for help. And then when you start moving into the job that you feel confident in, but you're moving into more of a management role, you can't always be everybody's friend. Sometimes you have to be the bearer of bad news. But I think communication and kindness, there's no reason you have to deliver bad news in a mean-spirited way. So I think leading with kindness and over communication help every time.
Can I just add something to what both of you are saying? Requires that girls and women are okay with a certain level of vulnerability. And it takes confidence to be vulnerable. So, you know, being vulnerable means I don't exactly know how to do this, but I know I can learn it. And I need to acknowledge that and ask for help. And girls and women need to not see that as a failing or a failure. And I think that's a lot of the issues that we have with this imposter syndrome is that, geez, I don't know what I'm doing, but I hope nobody can figure that out. We shouldn't have to feel that way. And there's one trait about women that is such a strength, and that's our resilience. And we need to leverage that and use that to our advantage. we will survive.
Yeah, I would add one, you know, when you talk about vulnerability, when you go into a meeting, whether it's for strategic planning or if it's even just, you know, what are we doing today and what are our current updates? Do you want someone to come in with all the answers, or do you want someone who says, you know what, I don't know the best path, but let's find it together? Vulnerability and the ability to say, I don't know the right answer every single time. You know, I do know a lot of things, but I don't know everything, and it's better as a team. You get better results.
You know, teeing off a little bit on some of the things you guys have been talking about. You were talking about building the tribe and your advisors and mentors. And, you know, I think that the diversity you have within that group, they might not all want to be in your same industry. They might not want to all be your same gender, might not, you know, ages, you know, all those things can be really helpful when you build that group of mentors. And I guess in that same vein, where would you recommend someone start if they're starting to look to build that tribe or that mentorship group of people that they call on? Jill, we might start with you on that.
You know, I think whatever industry you work within, there are industry networks. And so that's always a good place to start. A good place to start is even within your organization. And I think there are a lot of different ways that you can seek mentorship or be a mentor. Sometimes it's very formalized and you say to someone, you know, I would love to have your help. And asking them whether it's once a month, 30 minutes for coffee, or it's once a quarter to get together for a few minutes, or is it more of a daily, I need a dose of how to grow into my job and how to set goals and how to do all those things. And I think any mentoring position I've been in, whether it's as the mentee or the mentor, you should be learning something. It should be cross-relational. And so you're right, though, get outside of your office, but into the network. But you might cross paths with someone and you think, you know, we don't know each other at all, but I'm interested in you and what you're doing, and I feel like I could learn something, and maybe I can give you something too. There has to be some give and get each and every time. And I think it should be mentee driven. You know, don't go to a mentor and expect them to just mold you. You have to set the tone and the pace and what your expectations are.
What you want to get out of the relationship.
What do you want?
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Sherry, what are your thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, so we've run a lot of mentoring programs over the years with different models, and there's so many out there. And I will say that there's sometimes a shelf life on mentors, right? And that's based on perhaps the growth of where you're at and the goals you're trying to achieve during a professional growth spurt. And then at times, you know, that mentor can become less important because you need to be strategic about searching out for someone new. I know with some of the programs that we've done that have had a shelf life, some of that also has to do with with the mentors and the mentees not understanding the expectations of their role. There is some new terminology that I'm sure some of you have probably read called sponsorship. So I would like to touch on that a little bit. So what's so easy about asking somebody to be part of your mentoring tribe, as Jill called it, is that you can have multiple mentors and they serve different purposes. And anybody will go to coffee with you, right? And it might be a one-off situation for 15 minutes. But it also might be trying to determine whether or not you have a relationship or you've hit it off with somebody and you know that it's somebody that you could grow with, and then you ask them for maybe some more formalness to that process. But mentors are supposed, you know, those roles are more like sounding boards, where a sponsor is more like a champion. If you're advising your mentee, then if you're a sponsor, you're advocating for your mentee. And that's the different terminology that's being used. And I highly recommend if any of our participants haven't heard a lot about sponsorship, there's lots written about it. I would go out and look at that. A mentee will work privately with a mentor. But if you're a sponsor, then you are very public about the fact that you have this individual that you believe in and that you're introducing them to other people because you understand what success goals might look like for that individual. So there's really a lot going on in this area, and the word mentors still very, very powerful, but it definitely has a different spin on it right now than it has been in the past.
That's really good. I have not really heard much about that, so I appreciate you sharing that. Joy, how about your thoughts on the mentor sponsor growth and how you put those networks together? And when might they start even too? I mean,
And what?
And when might they even start? You know, might they start earlier in life?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, as girls progress and achieve their levels of success through an award series, they go from bronze, silver to gold award. We involve mentors. Every girl has a mentor. So when she's a little girl, you know, her troop leaders are mentors for her. But then as she gets older and starts planning a project, we introduce this idea of someone who comes in and helps you think through, challenges your thinking process, gets you more comfortable with taking your position and holding it and justifying it. And so I think that it's a critical step to success. I totally agree with Sherry on the sponsorship. So once you achieve a certain level of skill, acumen, confidence, you do need a sponsor who will advocate on your behalf. But first you have to accept that a mentor is always a great idea, and that you don't resist that or think that it's a sign of weakness to have a mentor, but rather an opportunity to get even stronger.
Great. Well, before Melanie takes on the next question, I want to remind all the participants on the call to use the Q&A on their Zoom call to send us any questions if they might have any things pop to your mind as we have the conversations, any specific questions. We'll try and direct as many of those as we can to the panelists towards the end of our regular part of the session. So Melanie, off to you now.
This is a question I'm going to pose to all three panelists. It's something that we talked about yesterday when we were looking at any questions you all wanted to provide. And this was something all three of you thought was something that we definitely needed to talk about. To know the thought process between that you all have on how COVID has impacted girls and women during this time. Joy, you want to start?
I'll start because I own the girl piece, right? And this is something that is critical that we talk about and that we study, and we're already starting to get some pretty impressive research on this topic. COVID is affecting everyone. It affects the entire family. Boys, girls, moms, dads, it doesn't matter. The impact on the girl, however, is different. And girls are experiencing this sense of hopelessness. And girls are kind of always driven to wanting to fix and take care of things in this hopelessness about, I'm hearing all of these stories, I'm hearing about all of these tragedies, and I don't feel like there is anything I can do to help. So it's increasing this level of helplessness. So as we help girls help others, we're making sure that they're understanding that in fact they are helping others, which is giving them some sense of relief. The issue about the positive sense of self. In this time of isolation and in and out of normalcy, girls are losing that opportunity for confidence building. Remember, all those attributes that I said was so necessary for confidence building is opportunity and encouragement. And right now, schools, teachers, positive, affirming adults are so stressed that this is not top of mind for them. And so that loss of positive role models is a real impact. The other thing for girls is that in times of stress, trauma, etc., girls in the family will be expected more often to help with domestic chores. So girls giving up what they have been working on to advance themselves, siblings, help take care of getting dinner going, etc. And so once again, she is not getting her development issues. And then the really most scary one is the increased accessibility to sexual abuse and violence. As the stress level in families is going up and there is more isolation or quarantine, if you will, girls are far more accessible now to being subject to those horrors. And because of the isolation, there is less opportunity for others in the milieu to recognize that and help that girl. So the impact on COVID is regressing girls. And if girls are already behind and we've been working to get them caught up, the impact is pretty significant in how we might be seeing their regression.
How about you, Sherry?
Yeah, so interestingly, Bloomberg just came out with an article late yesterday on this. And the title of it, catch this, is "The Pandemic Has Erased Years of Economic Gains for Women and is Poised to Leave Lasting Economic Scars." And in that, they're calling it the first female recession. There are an alarming number of women between the ages of 25 and 54 that are dropping out of the workforce right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know why. I mean, it's not like it's a secret that the child care issue is number one for families right now. If women are disproportionately a lower wage than men in the household, then, you know, as a family, you've got to make that decision, right? But these are lasting things. You know, when you think about the workforce now with women, or at least pre-COVID, being at, you know, 50%, when you know, the corporate world was really built by men for men because there were more men working in the corporate world, right? So years ago, when you think about how everything was structured, it was structured so that men would be at the office, and as women came into that office environment, that's why it's so disproportionate for women. Then those practices are the same, like early morning meetings, right? When women are the primary individuals getting the kids off to school. You know, it's really that we really have grown into a better situation, but this is just really, really, really going to put regression. And then when you think about the modeling that happens with mothers and daughters, and to Joy's point, just the household, the way in which the household runs, and what girls and boys particularly see of the roles that their moms and dads play, you know, equally as troublesome for the girls in the household is the fact that it's reinforcing for boys that this is what women and girls do, right? So it's really bad. Jill, I'll let you go now.
I know. Oh my gosh. So I would say absolutely 100% agree with everything that's been said, and not to reiterate that, so maybe I'll take a little different tact. I know our organization, we're not gigantic by any means. We're 24 people, and then we usually have 2 to 4 or 5 interns at any given time. And we've pretty well, when this all first started and you thought, oh, we'll be back in the office in June. And then it was, well, for sure by August. And, now we're like, well, maybe it'll be January or February of next year. And so, I think early on, we were doing a lot to like have a happy hour together, that replacing that coffee conversation or the sit down, just walk by and sit down in someone's office conversation. And so, we'd have happy hours, or we did different, we'd send out pizzas on Friday nights, or, just tried to keep that connectivity going. And, a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I'm seeing a lot of stress in our employees, and I usually just try to make touch points. And now, granted, 24 people, you cannot make a touch point every day like you could if you're all in the same place. But just to reach out, and instead of, what are you working on, and are you meeting these goals? It was more of a, how are you doing, and how's the family, and do you have any any worries, what's going on, and with school, and with some of our moms who have kids that are homeschooling at the moment. And we just decided to say, you know what, we're a great team, and we know it. And so whether you work 2 hours today, or you work 8 hours, or you work 10 hours today, we're going to be okay. If you need help with something, just let somebody know so we can pick up the slack. We put out a lot of just really mental health tools. We bought the Calm app for everybody, which just sometimes when you start feeling a little stress or anxiety, it's just breaking the chain. So how do you step away from that? Can you step outside and take a quick walk? Or do you just use the app to change direction of your thoughts? And just things like that. I think we're doing yoga once a week for anybody that wants to. I think it's the opportunity to air, we've got parents in the hospital, and we've got kids at home, and people trying to work, and we have all kinds of different stresses, and they feel so much harder right now because we are isolated. So I think we're just looking for ways to have a little grace and look out for one another. And I think we all need to do maybe a little bit more of that during these tough times.
Great advice.
Well said.
Yeah, that's really good.
I'd like to pick up on, Sherry, the article you just read. I definitely want to follow up on that. And interested in whether it is also speaking about before COVID, the greatest percentage of the workforce at minimum wage was women. And the jobs they were working are exactly the jobs that are not coming back. And so the increasing number of homelessness in women and their children then is a result of that. And the fact that whatever we come back to, they already have such a skills deficit. We know not every restaurant is going to reopen, not every hotel is going to survive. And so we have this whole new population of females then, that where are they going to go? And what are the organizations that are going to be there for developing what are the skills and the needs that they can fill? So again, the more that I just want to emphasize that we do not abandon the girl, and that's what I talk about. We cannot leave her behind, because if we do that, we are increasing that population of the women that I just described. And so this is a very huge problem that's going to impact this country for decades to come. And so I'm really glad that we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
Joy, I might add one thing if you don't mind, Kevin. I'm sorry.
No, I do not.
What I have seen too, you hit on it. There are a lot of those jobs that women hold, and it might be in convention work or housekeeping, hospitality, retail work, restaurant work, and now those jobs are all at risk. If they've been at risk, and many are just gone. And I've seen programs. I know Johnson County Community College does a really good job, and some of the coding for girls and just getting girls into different opportunities that maybe they hadn't seen. And I know also at Metropolitan Community College, they're reaching out to a lot of individuals. And you think of, maybe you left high school, and so you're working in this industry that you can never go anywhere beyond that. This is it. And trying to capture them and say, we have something that we can retrain, and whether it's customer service on the phone, or it might be, the opportunity to start in e-commerce, which has, there is a path to move through to management if you're willing to work for it. And I think being able to offer that schooling, the education, the certification, the training, but at the same time providing income makes the difference, because individuals in that bottom portion of the wage earner, they can't take a break from earning a wage to get a better education or to get a skill or certification. So really commend our community colleges for the work that they're doing.
At the risk of going moderately off the rails here a bit, I'm going to ask a question that we had from someone in our audience that kind of relates to this, and some things that the Chamber's been very concerned about. Our question was about your organizations becoming engaged in diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations in the workplace. And, some strategies that you all might suggest to reduce the COVID recession issues you were just talking about, what companies can do and things you've seen companies doing that would be more inclusive and allow women to participate in the workplace, even though some of these other demands are being placed upon them. So I will throw it open, and whoever jumps in first can answer that first.
I don't mind starting because I wanted to bring up a book. It's called We, W-E, Men, Women, and the Decisive Formula for Winning at Work. It's by Rania Anderson, which is a local writer, author, and speaker, international speaker. Many of you may already know Rania. What I love about her book is she's very actionable and tactical about what men and women in the roles that they have in corporate America should be doing in this to address this question. And I have a few in my head, but I was commiserating with her book a little bit just about the earlier thing I mentioned about early morning meetings. And there's now there's corporations that are fully aware that they are putting women at risk in their growth internally by scheduling 7 o'clock meetings in the morning, and that they have mandates about when particular meetings can be scheduled. Because for those corporations that are paying attention, they do have more work-life balance policies in play, right? Another, I remember one example Rania used when I listened to her speak once was, picture yourself in a boardroom, and you're a woman or a minority in that boardroom, and it just feels like everything that's being discussed or directed is with everyone else that's at the table that's comfortable having those conversations. It's up to a leader or a manager in that role to actually draw in those individuals that may not feel as comfortable making suggestions or participating in the dialogue, and that it's a learned trait for a manager to actually draw those individuals into the conversation. Another example was you get up from that boardroom and everybody's had bagels that morning. And it's a natural tendency for women to get up and start cleaning up the table. I do it. You're cleaning the coffee off and the crumbs on the, it's just innate in what we do, right? And if you are a leader in that group and you're a male sitting there with control over that, it would say, would everyone please pick up their items off the table and put them in the trash? Or, Joe, hey, do you mind cleaning up the coffee this morning? You know, where you're directing it to somebody that's not a female. And these are conscious things, but we are all in our roles. It's not wrong one way or the other. It's just that we have to all be intentionally thinking about what could change that. Another one in the workforce was, don't encourage somebody that is exhibiting bad behavior in a biased way. Don't laugh at the joke. Call them out on it. Say, I don't think that was really appropriate, or I don't see it that way, or I really agree with what Jill said on that. You know, and that you are not participating or agreeing with any individual that really can't see themselves past the bias. And then one that is really, really prevalent is, don't be planning activities that are male oriented, like a golf outing that might exclude, not that women don't golf, but it may exclude the good old boys network piece, going out to a bar and for a drink, to Jill's earlier comment about it's okay to go, but then how long do you stay? And then do you lose out on the camaraderie of the bonding because you're not in that role? So anyway, it's a wonderful book it provides specific actionable ways in which each one of us with our conscious and unconscious bias could make some change in how we affect the people that are also around us doing the bad behavior.
You know, I'll add, that was really good. And I've heard her speak. She's great. Gosh. And so I would add to that, we talk a lot about balance. And what is your father's name? Sorry, I don't know what that was. We talk a lot about balance. And I know when my son was at home, I didn't do any of the 7 or 7:30 meetings. And I said, this is my time getting my son ready for school and all of that kind of stuff, and not the late night meetings a lot. And so I think when it comes to balance, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be willing to say, these are the things I can do now, and this is what I'll do later. I heard Lisa Ginter, I was talking to her, she's president and CEO of Community America. And just a couple weeks ago, she was on a conversation with, it was the STEMI Awards. So it was the pre-STEMI conversation. And she talked about when she first moved over to Community America, she was coming in at a management role, not the CEO role, but she basically said during her interview, and she said, I need to know that I'll be able to go to my children's school and be the room mom, and this is important to me. And she said, the then president was like, okay, I've never been asked that before. And she said, well, this is important. And I think women leaders need to set the tone to be able to say, I put this on my calendar because I want everyone to know this is my time to go to read to the second grade or whatever it might be, or I'm going to a wrestling tournament. During Connor's high school years, took every Friday afternoon off, maybe all day Friday, because they were wrestling somewhere. And and then college, we took Fridays off to travel. So just providing that safe space for all the other women that you work with, that it's okay to choose family first and to set priorities. But I still get my work done. I've never, ever been accused of not getting my job done. So you have to also step up and be willing to give time somewhere else, maybe where, maybe it's midnight and you're finishing something, but to set your priorities in a way that works for you, works for your employees, all around.
I so much agree with what Sherry and Jill have just said, and would say that men need to do that too. One of the most critical things that we do is we have to be careful about is not discounting the men and the dads in the girl's life. We encourage dads to get engaged and involved with girls in girl activities. They are the greatest source of affirmation for a girl in terms of building her self-esteem. So I think that possibly one of the positive outcomes of COVID is that men have had the opportunity to have a more profound role by being home in quarantine with their kids, having to see the complexity of that life of balancing getting breakfast and school and work done, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very hopeful that it's helped men and women become more comfortable with men taking on some of those roles. Kids need both mom and dad. They need them both. And so I just wanted to say that.
Some really highly successful women actually attribute their success to the encouragement that they receive from their dads. Those that are really high achievers, which is very interesting, I think.
I would agree. One thing that I want to ask each of our panelists here, you all have mentioned, like Jill, you mentioned the app that you got for everybody and different things like that, and Sherry, you had a book. Any resources you want us to share with our participants today after the fact, please email those to either Deanna or me, and we'll be sure and get those out to all the panelists or the participants so that they can have access to those. Because Sherry, I need to find that book too. So that sounds like a great piece, definitely. Melanie, you're up this time. I'll mute myself.
Well, really, to kind of finish up, we've got about 15 minutes left. Really would like to, any parting words or anything specific you would like to leave each of our participants to remember taking back out into the world, whether they are, at home mom trying to help their kids with school every day and still jump on Zoom calls, or in the office, or even starting to myself raise a young child. Into this world. What advice would you give everybody and want to leave everyone here with? Jill, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. So I would say, one, you have to take care of yourself first. So make sure you're providing time for mental health, for physical health, for, it's really hard to eat right when you're at home because it's so easy, to walk through the kitchen and pick something up. And so, maybe to choose almonds instead of chocolate, I guess, and I don't do that always. But I would say it is hard to put yourself first. And, I think sometimes Kevin, you talked about resources earlier. I get a few things daily. I start my day with Dynamic Catholic has kind of this prayer or a psalm or something in the morning. I also have, it's a deck of cards. I swear it was like $5 on Amazon. And it was called A Grateful Heart. And each day you pull out a card and it might have a verse on the front, but then it has, a saying from, could be Martin Luther King Jr. or somebody else, and on the back. And I kind of keep that on my desk throughout the day. And I sent it to my dad after my mom had passed away because he couldn't find gratitude. And so I think that's a big thing too, is the thing that I do a lot to remain positive, even when it's tough, is to, sometimes write down 3 things you're thankful for. And it could be nothing more than, our power went out on Sunday and we have buried lines everywhere out here. And so I was like, how does this even happen? So I'm thankful that the lights came on, whatever it might be. So I think it's about self-care. But it's also about reaching a hand. You know, Sherry, I love that, sponsoring. So it's about advocating for others and making sure that they have the resources they need and that they're stretching themselves. You know, I was asked last week to be on a board, and I said, you know, I would be honored, except I think I know a person on my team that would be excellent for you. And so it's looking for opportunities to forward the people around you, I think.
Wonderful. Sherry, how about you? Any parting words you want to leave all of our participants today?
Is it Sherry or Joy?
Sherry.
Sorry, I'm looking at Joy. I've started my happy hour. I would say give yourself a break if you're having more happy hours than you used to. No judgment. I know that's sort of funny, but it's kind of true. I'm to Jill's point about self-care. You know, I this is what I do for a living, is preach this stuff, right? And I'm in the midst of a elderly parent that requires 24/7 care during COVID, for God's sake. Seriously, you know, and there's a blessing there too, right? But it doesn't stop me from being okay to do a happy hour with some friends that gets your head out of just, you know, it's a lot, right? You got to get your head out of it and stop the pity party. And I think sometimes if you focus on somebody else, to Jill's point, that really is probably in a worse shape than you are. And right now for me, that's any of the mothers that are having to do, and mothers and fathers that are doing this child care / teaching / you know, it's working. It's so much. I don't understand survival. And I think the mental health issue is very, very real. But I think we have to not be, women are going to be really hard on themselves, because you can't be 100% in all those categories. So drink more? I don't know. That might have been what I meant.
Well, you know, I look up and down my block and all the parents that have these young kids, and every time I see them out, I'm like, I'm praying for you every day, you know, because I just can't even imagine having toddlers at home during this time and trying to do work. And, you know, we try to go entertain them a little bit, but we got, you know, both my wife and I are both working outside the home, and we do lend our teenager occasionally to them to give them a break whenever she's got some time. So that does help. So.
Joy, how about you?
Much the same. I think that I say give yourself some grace. Say to the self-talk, I think, is so important. Change the real. Instead of, I didn't get this done, I'm not doing this right, I missed that, I forgot that. It's, I am good. I am doing the best that I can. It's okay to not be perfect. And I just think whatever your self-talk is, take out the negativity, take out the, oh, you know, the kids didn't get their bath tonight. Things could be, you know, there are worse things in the world than that. That could happen. And I just think that we have to really keep things in perspective, but we need to give ourselves grace. We're good. We're doing the best that we can. Is it perfect? No. Could it be better? Yes. Will it be someday? Hopefully. Right now, I know I'm good and I'm doing the best I can.
I might share one more, because I know this is happening with a lot of our clients. You know, as corporations are doing their very best to try to figure out how to navigate this with our workforce, right? Working remotely, trying to find consistency across employees and HR policies. You know, if you're in an environment to where the culture is really starting to not support where you're at, you know what, there are jobs out there. There are things happening in different sectors that are actually creating and fueling some jobs. And I I encourage anyone not to feel like they're stuck, and they may be stuck right now and it may not be a quick thing, but it's okay to think ahead, because that culture may not be the culture that's for you long term. And there's lots of resources, and as you can see from the OneKC for Women behind my head, if anyone knows of anyone, all of our services are free, that is in the furlough mode and they're getting ready to be separated full, there still are jobs, and trying to keep again, that confidence level up, right? And not spiral down and get in the fetal position. You should just refer them to us. And there's lots of programming going on that's online, that might just be, in fact, we did one the other day on just that parenting. What does it mean to, and oh my gosh, we had so many women on that call trying to figure out, well, maybe I'll get a better tip, because I'm swimming or dying here. So there's stuff out there. Have them reach out.
It is a strange time for us all, and it's working together, offering things like this. It's amazing to me to think about 6 months ago. I don't think any of us would have thought of doing this, and having the opportunity for 40, 50 people to get online and hear from some great people about how they've made it work, not only pre-COVID, but during this COVID time. And like we're all wondering, is this going to go on for a while? I think it will, and the repercussions, even if we get a vaccine and it's working right and it's keeping everybody safe, how long does it take to roll it out to the public and get general people feeling comfortable out in the community? So, but always remember too, I hope that, I know all of you are very accessible, and people, if they want to reach out to you, should feel free to. We can also help here at the Chamber. And one of the things I just want to say, because we need to probably wrap things up, Melanie, would you concur? Okay.
I agree.
Well, I just want to, thank all of our sponsors. I think, oops, we do have a few questions that came up. Oh, these are people saying thank you. So we love that part. We love those comments. So I hope everybody enjoyed our event today. Our sponsors are just so darn important to the success of the Chamber, and I hope that you all will remember them when you're making decisions about your purchases and doing business with them within the community. So we really appreciate that. And I also want to thank our panelists, and again, Melanie and Courtney for speaking today, but Jill, Sherry, and Joy, truly thank you from the bottom of our heart here at the Leawood Chamber. We really do appreciate that you took the time in a late afternoon to speak with our group. And again, I will look forward to getting this information out to our broader community through our YouTube channel as well later. So with that, Melanie, any closing remarks from you?
Good. Thank you so much to the panelists.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Melanie, for serving as my co-moderator on these events. We've had a lot of fun doing this, so I really appreciate it. You guys have a good evening, all of you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.